Wait. No, I'm not ready.
Oh, too late. Welcome back, Hoops HD fans.
Chad, I'm not ready. Chad, there he goes messing up the show again. I'm not ready yet. Chad decides it's time to start.
David setting the record for the quickest buzzer in the history of Hoops HD. Welcome back to Hoops HD. This is our bracket rundown show. I'm your host, Chad, by David Griggs and Matt Zukowski up top here. John Sleeka, Fortson in the second row. Getting a little bit of noise there on the line. We'll try to get that cleared up. This is our bracket rundown show where what we're going to do is go ahead and build a seed list. And David, what is a seed list? Let's start with some definitions here.
Well, okay, a seed list is basically a ranking of all 68 teams that the selection committee selects in the tournament, 1 through 68. The seeds, of course, there's 4 number 1s, 4 number 2s. So 1 through 4 would be the 1 seeds, 5 through 8 would be the 2s, and so on. So in its simplest form, it ranks the 68 teams that the committee selects 1 through 68.
Okay. And we're going to figure out what teams belong in the field as of right now, and we are recording this about 9:45 on Thursday evening, so a few late games tonight, including this Gonzaga-St. Mary's game, have not gone final and probably will not be factored in. I guess on that note, let's pull up the screen here, David. I think you've got it, or do we have it here? All right, here is our – okay, there we go. There.
Where's the Oh, yes. Yes, this is what we're using. Look at that one line. That is a magnificent one line. I think the rankings are messed up. Those power rankings are messed up. Like, you got to fix that. I mean, 72 is not
the highest power ranking is.
Right. Well, I mean, no, it's just, again, you have to factor in the dark web conspiracy against them, which is holding them back. The committees they will be found out. The committee will factor them in, and they will be on the one line.
And what's this, Kansas and Missouri in the 8-9 game, David? I mean, seriously?
Well, yeah, I mean, why not? Kansas has been struggling this year. They've lost 3 games at home. And Missouri's like red hot.
Okay, let's get that cleared up. And that was ridiculous, David. Let's get something serious. And Joby, why don't I start with you and we take off this nonsense here.
Wait, what are you doing? Chad, you can only eliminate one team. One team per line. You just eliminated the whole number 1 line, Chad. You're not following the rules.
We are going to go through each of our panelists here. We're going to give us their 4 teams. We're going to have a debate over it. If there's a decision that needs to be made on pulling a team out and replace it with someone else, I'm going to be the arbitrator on and make that final decision. But Joby, I'd like to start with you now that David's Nebraska love is gone.
Well, Nebraska is not on the 1 line in my book, but
dark web conspiracy.
Tonight I'm going to do something little unusual. It's not necessarily what I would agree with 100%. As viewers of this know, one of the formulas that is kind of the basis that Hoops HD, it's a Hoops HD original, is the J&G, Joby Nitty Gritty. I use it basically it uses the nitty gritty page to determine a seed list, exactly like this. Yes, there are obvious things here and there to switch in and out on it. But I thought for fun, my seed list tonight is also lazy, but my seed list would actually, I'd just go through the J&G. There will be some obvious movements that I will personally agree with most of the time, but on the 1 line, it's a little easier, though I see a team that will be removed. I'm just going to go with the J&G seed list to start us off. And the first team, Villanova.
Yeah.
The second team is Purdue.
I mean, you're out on Purdue. No.
Those are – now the next 2, I have 2 Big 12 teams. I think an ACC team actually will be here. But I have Kansas and Oklahoma.
Well, as I get those in there, you could see actually the J&G column on that 4th column. We have RPI, KenPom ratings, strength of schedules, and then there's those J&G numbers. They'll be there all night for us. But
what about the D&G? Why did Joby's power rankings become the choice of Hoops HD and not mine? The D&G were better.
Well, the JG was 68 of 68 last year. So just that's always a nice. Yeah.
Well, mine reflected what they should have done.
Matt, Villanova and Purdue. I love those picks 1-2. Do you agree with that? That Purdue is now a solid 1 seed.
Oh yeah, that definitely like their quality of wins and just like their overall record of that. No, they were number 2 on my S curve as well.
Right. And Salika, what about this Kansas Oklahoma being up here on the 1 line?
I agree with Oklahoma on here. I think Kansas could probably use maybe 1 or 2 more quality wins to merit being on the 1 line right now just because of the 3 losses. I mean, Virginia, for example, that would have been my choice to be on the 1 line as well. They have the quantity of wins, but maybe not the quality that you would see among other teams this high.
Well, Kansas.
David, I wanted to ask you about Kansas. I've got Kansas's profile on the screen here. They have 7 Sector 1 wins that are all away from home. Isn't that pretty darn good?
It is, and damn, that's pretty good. That really is pretty good
right there.
I still just think like the loss to Washington in a mostly home game. I still think if we're going to take somebody off the 1 line, I think it would be Kansas because, well, what about Texas Tech, who also won at Kansas, and why not put them all the way up here? They don't have any bad losses, and now, Kansas does have, in my opinion, the best singular win that any team in the nation has. But when I see them play, it's like they've dropped a couple at home, and they've had a couple of other close calls. And I know that they just won at West Virginia. I like West Virginia better, but I also like Virginia better. And to be honest, I have Kansas all the way down toward the bottom of the 2 line. I have Duke ahead of Kansas as well, who also won a big road game over the weekend.
Well, but look at this Kansas. Let's start with this Kansas versus Oklahoma, because I guess the first question is, if we don't take them both off, why should Oklahoma stay? I mean, Joby, I can see why Kansas is above Oklahoma. Can't you when you look at the profiles?
Yeah, no, and I can see it too off the pure profile, but maybe it's the Trae Young, in my eyes component. Mm-hmm. The Washington loss might be the differentiator. The Washington, I would argue, is, when you pull up, Washington's not an awful loss, actually, when you really look at it. It's technically neutral. We all know it's Kansas, but I think Oklahoma's a better team. I'm sorry if that's pure eye test, but I like Oklahoma a little more.
Well, another thing – oh, sorry. I got another, thing about – Kansas's profile, and this doesn't jump out at you right away. It's one of those things you got to peel back the onion, but it's off the screen. But the Kansas profile, that win at Nebraska, they were aided by the dark web conspiracy against the Cornhuskers, so you can't really give them credit for winning that one.
And I will say one thing about the ratings tonight is that numbers 3 through 7 are packed. Like yesterday, Virginia was actually ranked number 3 yesterday, fell out of the top seed line just probably because of Lehigh's loss. So they're very tight.
Yeah. Well,
I did not have Kansas up this high, but after seeing that many wins away from home, I like them a lot more. 90 seconds ago, I never would have felt this way. Yeah, I like them more than Oklahoma. I still like Virginia and Duke more than both of them, but Kansas that's a pretty good profile.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's pull up the Virginia and the Duke profiles here, both at the same time. Let's take a look at them. These are the 2 teams that we are discussing. This should be coming on the screen right there. Duke, only the 2 losses. You see there, Virginia, just the 1 loss. Is there a case to be made that these are better than those Kansas and the Oklahoma profiles we just looked at?
I like
Oklahoma, maybe. Kansas's profile is pretty good. Wow, where'd that come from?
Okay, again, I was asking Matt, David, but
okay. I personally had the ACC schools on the 1 line, and I had the Big 12 schools not on the 2 line. Duke has like all the quality wins they have away from home. Virginia, I'm going just strictly on them as a team at this point. Like their profile is not a one-seed profile, but they're so good as a team. I think I trust that they will build to a one-seed profile. And one of these ACC teams will probably jump for a Big 12, but if I was putting the field together today, I'd have the two ACC teams at 3 and 4.
I think once Virginia gets past this weekend, look at their remaining schedule, because after that there's only going to be 2 other teams with triple-digit RPIs. So the opportunities are definitely going to be there for the Hoos.
I'll tell you, it's really hard when you look at Kansas versus Virginia. Who belongs on the one line? Joby, do you want to defend why Virginia should be up there over Kansas, or do you want to defend why Kansas should be there?
And it comes back because Kansas got the win at West Virginia. But, Virginia's only loss was a game where they were tied with 4 minutes to go in Morgantown, tough place to play. They've beaten all comers, and then let's go to the predictive rankings, which I'm not as big on, but their margin of victory has been tremendous. Yet another game that I bet you Virginia's J&G will move back into the top 4 after tonight, a road win against Georgia Tech. And they're doing it every one of these games. They're winning by double digits, and just in disemboweling North Carolina. 61-49 doesn't tell the story in that game.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and make final call here. I am going to make my one move. It'll be Oklahoma out, Duke in their place.
Good move.
One line. We'll carry Oklahoma and Virginia over as under consideration for the 2 line. And Matt, let me go to you for the 2 line. Beyond Villanova, Purdue, Kansas, and Duke.
Yeah, so I'd have Virginia, I'd have Texas Tech, I'd have Oklahoma, and I'd have West Virginia.
So it's the Big 12 conference.
Yeah, my personal one that had all 4 Big 12 teams, although I will say I didn't realize Kansas's profiles quietly crept up to. I guess they're sort of their usual standards, but because they don't look like a 1 seed on the court. But
holy crap, that is my exact 2 line. Well, of what's left.
Well, then, David, I'm not going to ask you any further. Joby, how about you? What about the 3rd ACC team? Shouldn't they be in the discussion?
Yeah, no, North Carolina would be the top team not yet mentioned. This is another one I have a feeling when we pull it up, minus the Wofford game. And that's a big minus that you have to say is it'll have a little bit of Kansas in because they have a lot of Tier 1 wins and on the road. I mean, look at it. It's very, very Kansas-like with Stanford's improvement. All of a sudden, that blowout win's looking even better. And look in Tier 2. Our win is the win over Michigan, who is going to be in our field solidly, a Tier 2 win. I actually think even though it's at home, it's a Tier 1 win.
Yeah, and I think it will be there. I mean, Michigan.
And the losses, are you really going to fault? Yes, they got blown out at Virginia, but are you really going to fault a neutral court to when Michigan State was viewed as maybe the number 1 team and a nail biter in Tallahassee? On a quick 1-2 punch with Virginia. That was the front end of that 1-2 punch, but it was a quick 1-2 punch early in the season at the beginning, right after the New Year.
Well, Slika, can a case be made that maybe West Virginia, who's got the worst RPI of anybody we've discussed so far, 21, some of the other predictive matrix, resume matrix, 19 for the KPI, maybe they need to be down on the 3 line, below North Carolina with their back-to-back losses they've had the past week?
I think we have to look at the whole body of work here because Carolina, yes, they have lots of quality wins versus 1 bad loss. West Virginia, they didn't have the greatest non-conference schedule, but by the same token, the Virginia and Oklahoma wins will carry some weight. Even the win against Missouri that was part of I think it was the Advocare Invitational down in Orlando. But also keep an eye on wins like Kansas State, Oklahoma State that they've gotten on the road. Not everyone in the top 2 lines has been able to win games like that. And by that, I mean Oklahoma actually fell at Kansas State the other day.
Yeah.
Right.
They fell head first and shattered their skull. It was just a pretty big.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and make a decision here, and my decision is going to be to leave this thing alone exactly as Matt called it.
That is an excellent decision because it's what I had, and that's how you judge whether or not it's a good decision.
And so, Salika, let me go to you for the 3 line.
Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and put North Carolina in as my first 3 seed. And after that, I would add my own Xavier team in the number 10 spot. And beyond that, where things start to get a little interesting, I know both of these teams lost last night, but I will still take Auburn and Wichita State to fill out this 3 line.
I kind of like that Auburn pick on the 3 line still. David, let me ask you though, what do you think of those 4 teams, and is there something that he got wrong?
Well, he wasn't egregiously wrong. I was big on Wichita State until Joby talked me out of them on the show last week. He kept saying, like, they've done nothing. And eventually I thought he was right. But Auburn, I have them just below, like, I had them number 13 overall. The team I like is, and I know that this is way higher than anybody else would have them, but, like, when I look at them, and if we could pull up Michigan, it is just I just think they're playing really well. I don't think this is too high for them at all. And the other team, and I realize that they had a bad time down in Atlantis, but I have Arizona up this high because they've been on a roll. They've had to sweat out some wins, but they've been winning.
Well, I think you really have to still be at Michigan this early. I mean,
well, look at Michigan State, at Tech. Those are monster wins.
They're not as monster wins as they were a month or so ago. Matt, do you want to respond to this Michigan argument as a 3 seed?
Yeah, I have as my top 4 seed, so it's not as ludicrous. I actually one team that I think is kind of catapulted by the fact that they haven't lost, and I like what they did out of the league is actually Gonzaga.
And that's a team that I would have leaned to also. Joby, what's your thought on that? Maybe Gonzaga.
Well, the one team that I jump out at is pull up Clemson's profile for me. I know they lost this week, but we definitely would have mentioned them had that loss not occurred.
Wait, they did? Well, thanks for the spoiler. I had DVR'd that one.
Look at the
Hadn't seen it yet.
Away from home. It's it's that same sort of thing that, at Ohio State's a great, we talk about Michigan, maybe we should talk Ohio State at the same time because their resumes are relatively similar. Yeah, Michigan, Louisville, who now is in our field magically. This wasn't the case a week ago when we were on the air.
Well, they're not in the field
really
yet. We only have 8 teams in the field so far.
And Temple now has after last night has 4 wins against the field. So even though Temple itself is not deserving of mention, a loss to Temple this year, I am now saying doesn't matter. Because there are 4 teams that we'll talk about tonight that will have a Temple loss on their resume. So, I mean.
That's it. That is the wrong screen there. Okay. These are the 3 teams we just mentioned here. Gonzaga, Michigan, Clemson. Salika, do you want to make a case why Wichita State is better than those 3? Because that's the team that's suspicious for me on your 3 line.
Well, part of it is going to be because they play in the American, but at the same time,
and they lost at home to SMU last night.
That took the bloom off the rose for me. I was buying them. I think, this is a really good team. Their resume isn't as good. You don't lose at home. SMU isn't bad, but the home loss aspect. Hey, if they lost that SMU, whatever. You lost down the road to a decent team.
But if I am going to make the case
they did score more than 20 in the first half in that loss, though.
Now, if I am going to make the case for Wichita State, I will go by one of the statistics that the Puppet likes to throw out. They are 7-1 away from the Roundhouse and also Intrust Bank Arena, where they also had a home game. They do win rather decisively, like Virginia does.
Other than Marquette, though, are any of those wins worth the damn?
I would still say Baylor on the road, Oklahoma State on the road.
On the road.
Yeah.
But we're talking about teams that are protected seeds, and you're saying, hey, their best road win, their best win away from home is against a team that will not be in our field most likely tonight. I'd like to go in. Well, they play in the American. The American isn't woeful. There are opportunities. They're not in the Missouri Valley. And so I'm sorry. I can't go with Wichita State here. They need to do more. I'll be a broken record until they do it.
Yeah, David, here's on the screen.
Cincinnati or whoever.
Yeah.
Here on the screen, David.
Don't say Cincinnati.
Is that Wichita State profile and Gonzaga? I mean,
I love Gonzaga from Wichita State.
Well, profile-wise, it's Gonzaga. I mean, you know, you look at them; they got beaten up by Nova pretty bad. But other than that, like their only other losses were by 2 and to Florida in a quadrupler, wasn't it? Yeah. And if you lose a quadrupler, it should count as a win, just on the grounds that quadruple overtime games are awesome.
Well, David,
But since
I was going to say, David wants to go Michigan here. Joby, I think, wants Clemson. Matt, I think, are you on Gonzaga here for the?
Yeah, I'm Gonzaga definitely of this.
This is a tough call for me. I can't go Big Ten here. I think that the Big Ten draws down Michigan a bit because of the conference woes overall. I'm going to go Clemson, Joby. I'm going to go with you here. I think with the conference pull them up there. If I'm going to knock Michigan out for that reason, I got to knock Gonzaga out for the same reason, and I got to put Clemson in. So that's my thought there. But we'll hold Wichita State over. And David, I'll go to you for our 4 line.
Where's Auburn? Oh, okay.
Auburn is.
I'm sorry. I'm deleting teams as we put them in, so I know not to repeat them. On my own personal seed list, Arizona, who I mentioned already, and who you mistakenly left out because is who I'd have next. Michigan, and then Kentucky, and then Gonzaga.
So you're still not going Wichita State even?
No. Again, Joby talked me out of them. I really liked them about a week ago, but not so much now. And again, the standard as to how correct you are is basically how close it is to what I think. So I think we can move on to the next line now.
Okay, let me chime in on Arizona here. If I'm going to have my Wichita State pick taken away because they don't have the quality wins, where is Arizona? Because Arizona State is fading. Texas A&M is fading. I don't know who else they've beaten right now. Maybe Alabama, that would be comfortably in our field later on.
We'll talk Alabama, but they're definitely in a dark jersey.
I think let me respond. Let me actually respond to you, Salika, here. Yes, they beat those teams that are fading now, but when they beat those teams, early December for the A&M win, late December for Arizona State win, those teams were playing as good as they played all season when they won those games. And that's what I do like about this Arizona profile, a lot better than I like this Wichita State profile where your best win after the Marquette win is at UConn. I mean, really?
And I got to be honest, and I realize that this is a little bit reactionary. I was really unimpressed last night. Unimpressed when talking about protected seed caliber teams. It's one thing to stub your toe a little bit as a protected seed, but it's another thing to do it when you really haven't done anything in addition to stubbing your toe. So I'm just a little bit soured on the Shockers right now.
Matt, one team he did not mention. You're a Big East guy. I know that they lost badly, but should we be talking Seton Hall here?
No. Oh, I don't like Seton Hall. We should not be talking Seton Hall.
No, I think we should. This is me.
Oh, Matt. Well, you're wrong.
The neutral court went over Texas Tech and a win at Louisville. Louisville is suddenly sort of comfortably in my field. They're just wearing a dark jersey. So those 2 wins away from home. In that they beat Creighton handily in the first game. So they basically, each team destroyed each other on their home. Or actually, now the Creighton game's a little closer. But Hall pulled away at the end comfortably.
Is Seton Hall up
they won
there they are.
No one else has done, basically.
Those top 4 wins are nice wins, David. They're real nice wins.
Yeah.
They are, but I mean, again, I just don't – this team whenever I must catch them on bad nights. I did watch the Texas Tech game and was relatively impressed. I caught most of the Louisville game, but I mean, it's just, losing to Rhode Island without. I know Rhode Island's good, but Rhode Island was without their best player. They got dismantled by Marquette and Creighton, and it's just hard for me. I mean, they weren't even in the game. I'm just not as big on Seton Hall. I don't think they're as good on the court as their paper indicates.
Well, you're also
yes, that's a subjective comment, I know, but I mean, I haven't seen Seton Hall play a really good game in a while.
You're also missing the other elephant in the room that's one RPI Rutgers.
Yeah, they lost to Rutgers. Who loses to Rutgers? How big of a loser do you have to be?
When Seton Hall loses, they lose. And they lose bad. But when they win, they're a nice team. And Joby, where are you on this?
That was very profound there, Chad. Well, when they win.
I'm definitely Seton Hall over. But the team I'd pick on, I'm still not ready on Michigan here.
They won at Michigan State.
Seton Hall in that comparison, I'd be. There is another team I'd like to throw in to the consideration that I think will definitely be either this line or next line, and that is the Florida Gators.
Yeah, I'm about with you too on that.
I think they've resurrected their profile. Maybe it's because, the Florida State thing and all, we've forgotten it. Loyola Chicago looks good right now. They are in first place in the Missouri Valley. They're not going to get it at large, but they're going to be a 12 seed right now in our field, I bet.
I'm not ready to go with you on Florida quite, Joby, because that Loyola Chicago and the Ole Miss loss, I know the Florida State, I mean, that's 3 quadrant 2 losses there. And that's a lot. Most of the
now neutral court Gonzaga. Well, why is Gonzaga at 55 in the RPI? That's ridiculous.
At Michigan State,
Gonzaga's a tier 1 and realistically. And yes, they caught Stanford when Stanford didn't have a full team per se, but that Stanford one's going to look a little better.
Does Texas have a home loss outside of Michigan? I don't think they do.
Kansas won there.
Oh, Kansas did win. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And now I can't believe we haven't mentioned what the hell is Kentucky doing on the 4 line? This isn't last year's Kentucky or 2 years ago's Kentucky. This is this year's Kentucky that's beaten Louisville, A&M in a kind of controversial game. And what else?
That's a fair point. If I were to permit you to remove someone, it would be them.
Well, the problem is they also melted down against South Carolina the other night.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for 33 minutes, they looked pretty good.
Yeah. Kentucky is the suspicious team here, especially with that South Carolina loss. I'm just not impressed with them. And that is why Kentucky is going to be the team I'm going to be booting out here. I've liked the Seton Hall arguments the best of what I've heard. I really have. I don't like those bad losses by Florida, and I'm not impressed by Wichita State yet. So,
well, if you just look at their wins, that was quite profound of Chad to look at their wins. So Arizona, Michigan.
Well, I have to look at it. You have to look at everything, David. But Joby, let me go back.
No. You just look at the wins.
Joby, let me go back to you for the.
Can we pull up Nebraska and just look at their wins?
Joby.
All right.
5 line. We've talked about Florida, Wichita State, and Kentucky. They have not gone in yet, but
this is where I'm going to drive Stalika crazy. If we go pure J&G, for some reason, the best team in the American, Stalika, is getting a lot of love, and it ain't Wichita State.
Honestly, that's only one spot where I would have Cincinnati. So,
what has Cincinnati done that is even decent other than blowout?
I'll tell you what, Joby. Before you give me your other teams here, I want to pull up a comparison here. Let's take a look at these 2 American teams because I kind of agree with the J&G. I like Cincinnati's profile right now better than Wichita's. You've got
getting some fake tier 1 wins though, and that's why the J&G likes them. There's some fake, phony tier 1 wins.
At least they have tier 1 wins. At least they have them.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that win at UCLA, and they won that game handily. They didn't just squeak that one.
I almost like a SMU win at home over like at Central Florida.
Well, yeah, no,
At Temple and at Central Florida, I think beating Marquette once on a neutral floor is more impressive than beating both of those teams in true road games.
But the other aspect is they haven't lost to anybody because the next team on my list will be Florida. So it's Xavier, who we already have in the field, Florida, who I think is a pretty strong argument for this line.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Joe. I think they're a perfect 5 seed.
Only lost those games, and that's why
Cincinnati is so far down my list. I can't even comprehend them
you
being
hate watching them play, but their results are.
Oh yeah, did you watch the UCF game? It was like, here's a spoon so you can dig your eyeballs out. You'll thank me for it.
It's a rock fight when you watch Cincinnati. I get it. All right, the next two teams, Wichita State and Kentucky barely miss out. So I know I'm going to get some boos and ahs. The next team listed in the J&G is Tennessee. And the next one is, I know they're on a free fall mission, but it's still Arizona State in this parachute mode.
That's the only team you selected that I actually like.
Arizona State beat out Wichita State by like .001. So just for your knowledge, and Kentucky is right behind them. So Wichita State, Kentucky is certainly an allowable argument.
Yeah, I understand the Arizona State pick, actually. I mean, and David, because you can't completely ignore what they did early in the season.
Yeah, and they did a lot. They beat Xavier on a neutral floor, who's in our field. They won at Kansas, who we put on the one line with that amazing profile of theirs. Yeah, they've kind of hit the skids lately, but when you look at the whole body of work, it's still really good. It's better than anybody else on this line, in my opinion.
And Tennessee, at least my metrics are actually, if anything, less generous than the other metrics around. So let's pill them up.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the only team that has been mentioned, Matt, let me go to your comments. I think the only team that has been mentioned, it's another free-falling team maybe that needs to talk here, is Michigan State.
Yeah, this is where, it was close. I actually had them all the way up on my 3 line just because I'm going on what I think they are as quality a team. This last couple of weeks has been disastrous for them, but I couldn't have them lower than a 5. I can see why they're down to a 5, but I'd still, for going on the free fallers, I like Michigan State a whole lot more than Arizona State.
Well, Sliko, where do you stand on this, and who should be on this 5 line if we're going to make a move, if we're going to take somebody off?
If we're going to take just one team off, I probably would go ahead and throw in Michigan State right here. I mean, let's not forget they had the win against North Carolina that was part of the PK 80 Invitational. Also some respectable wins against Maryland, Notre Dame. Please don't make me mention that N word.
Yeah, I really do. I love those. I mean, Arizona State, you've got that neutral court win over Xavier, road win over Kansas, and only one bad loss. I mean, the Stanford loss is and the Colorado losses aren't awful. They're road wins against some schizophrenic teams, but I do like the idea of leaving Arizona State here. I guess the question is, who do we pull off if we're going to put a Michigan State or a Kentucky on the list?
You pull off Cincinnati, Florida, and Tennessee.
No, I could pull off Michigan State for Tennessee, too. I would keep Cincinnati and Florida there, but I could pull Michigan State off for Tennessee.
And you know what? I'm going to agree with you 100%, Matt. I think Michigan State.
Cincinnati all the way? Oh, my God.
David, I would have had Cincinnati higher than that, but –
all the more reason to think they're too high. Oh.
That was the 5 line. Matt, let's go to the 6 line. Let me turn to you for that. Tennessee, Wichita State, Kentucky, still not in the field.
Yeah, I do have Wichita State on this line.
Okay.
I will be making a fellow Hoops HD colleague happy. I would next have Ohio State. Then I would go Creighton. And then for the 4th one, I'm going to go with Rhode Island.
So you're still not going Kentucky or Tennessee?
No. I can see a Tennessee argument. Kentucky, no. I have Kentucky on my 8 line, personally.
I'm glad you mentioned Creighton here because, as you may have seen today on social media, one of their front court players, Martin Krempage, I think is how you pronounce the name.
I think it's Krempel.
Yeah, he's out for the year with a torn ACL, which is exactly 1 year to the day they found out Mo Watson was going to be gone last year. So Creighton having some pretty hard luck the past couple years with injuries.
Yeah, mid-January is just not their time.
Yeah.
Well, 'cause
David, is there anybody that we haven't discussed yet that we should be talking about here? I think there's a couple.
Let's Wichita, Ohio State, Creighton. I didn't have Creighton quite this high. Rhodey I actually had on this line. My next team that we haven't really talked about, because I had Kentucky in by now, but what about Miami? And I realized that it's rather unspectacular, but I did have them in this range.
I'm going to put them down here at the bottom of the under consideration.
I actually had my guideline personally.
Yeah. Well, I had Cincinnati on mine. So, like,
Well, David, I thought you would come up with a team with a different team. What about the Wolfpack in Nevada?
They were actually my next one under consider. Like they would have been my top 7 seed.
But they beat.
Yeah, I didn't have them this high.
Island.
So, Rhodey didn't have E.C. Matthews, but
the Dons of San Francisco.
Yeah. No, I like Nevada. I just didn't quite like them as much as this. They would have been on my next line.
But if you look at this Rhode Island profile, the Nevada profile, I think you got fairly even profiles here.
Yeah.
We have Seton Hall as a protected seed. That I think trumped, and that was on a neutral court too. That trumps the home win, even though I know they'd be behind the head. That was on their home court. Yeah. I think Rhode Island would return the favor if they played at Rhodey.
And remember, Seton Hall, that was at the Barclays. I dare say Seton Hall had more of the crowd and more of a home field.
Was it Barclays? I thought it was at the Garden.
Well,
it was at Barclays.
Barclays, but still, that's exactly that.
NIT is the
and for Rhodey to win that game without E.C. Matthews, I just think that, like, not only has Rhodey done it, they did a lot of this without one of their key players. Yeah. So I have Providence, like they're in the lower part of my field, but I also have Providence in my field. So that's 2 wins over teams I have in my field, because I don't think Nevada has another one. I mean, they played TCU and Texas Tech really tough, but they didn't win either of those. Well, I got to throw another team out there. And again, Michigan, who we have on the 4 and we should have on the 3, is currently losing to this team, and I don't understand. And they're facing the dark web conspiracy. Like, Nebraska needs to be in this conversation. On the board, Chad.
No.
Chad.
No.
Chad.
No. Not there. David, I am going to make a move. I think we got to get Kentucky in here. I'm sorry, Matt. I'm going to knock Rhode Island down. I think we'll leave Rhode Island and Nevada there for the next line, but let's put Kentucky in here. We'll talk about Rhode Island and we'll talk about Nevada soon, but let me go to Salika. Let me go to you for a 7 line.
There was one team I was going to put on this line earlier, but I'm going to have to defer them because they have their own injury situation, and that would be TCU and Jalen Fisher. I think it's a knee injury, so he is out indefinitely. So at this point, I am probably not going to put the Horned Frogs because I'm not sold that they're going to be winning very many games without him. So if we go among the other 4 best teams available, I am going to take Tennessee and Miami here. I will also add the aforementioned Rhode Island Rams. And fresh off of their home win against Texas Tech, I am going to go ahead and take the Longhorns of Texas.
Wow.
I agree with that, Texas.
Yeah, so I have Texas by 7 line.
Yeah.
It's the one at the bottom of the under consideration board that I have issues with.
Yeah, that's still
the
a couple
ACC
lines
guy
too high
talking.
for me.
So
Let's get to the Miami profile, and who would you have in over them?
Personally, I would probably go with maybe Nevada. This is where you take a shot at Nevada. The J&G would throw out a team that would shock you. Would be Roll Tide.
Huh?
Joby, we want a reason why Miami should not be here. So Matt, maybe you give me somebody else.
I will continue on the Nevada.
JNG was out drinking with me last night.
Well,
there's about 8 other teams I could have heard an argument.
Vanderbilt loss, and look at Alabama. They have 5 wins against the field. 5.
So we're already at the point of the season, Joby, where everybody has 1 loss that doesn't even count. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, Wofford is our number 9 seed. Our number 9 on our list lost to Wofford. So
they'd be a 1 seed if they had won that game.
If we're going to talk Alabama, I am also
a suite of really nice wins in total number. And Alabama beat a 3 seed, for instance, just this week.
They have some nice wins, but they also have the Minnesota loss, a loss at home to Central Florida, and also a loss at Vanderbilt, who was weapons-grade garbage this year.
Vanderbilt loss is off, without a doubt.
Well,
that's why
let's go back.
Little
Matt, let's go back to the Miami situation here. Your only wins of note are Middle Tennessee, who
lost
the game tonight, at Minnesota, who's pathetic. Probably that Florida State win is the best win, and you got
that Florida State thing is probably about the only one that's keeping them in my field. Like the other two forgot. Like the Florida State win, because I got Florida State pretty close to this next group of teams, but like at Minnesota, like no, that doesn't do a ton for me. And I'd be glad they had Reggie Lynch, he who probably should not be named at this point, but and then the middle isn't nice. Like I like that middle team, but they're not a tournament team at this point. So no, this is way too early for Miami. It's not like are their power rankings even that high?
Yeah, that Miami word is going to turn into the word Nevada. I think that's the way to go here. And I think that completes our 7 line actually. David, how about some 8 seeds? We have TCU, Miami, Alabama all mentioned.
Give me 1 second here. Tennessee's not just mentioned; they're already in. Are they
already in?
They just got them.
Yeah. Okay. Oh crap. I'm the typing is not easy when you don't have any arms. But at this point, I would have TCU, Florida State. They've had a hell of a week, and it might sound a little bit reactionary, but when you start to look at the teams in this area, I have Louisville all the way up here, and the aforementioned Miami team.
And Louisville, that we wasn't really close last week. I kind of agree with you because when you look at this little profile, Matt here, there's just nothing on it. I mean, the losses are all top 13 in the nation losses.
I think they'll get those 2 not just wins, road wins. That's what I think can jump you. And Florida State, we have Florida State right in this range. We'll probably still have ND in this field, even though I'm starting to see a bit of a slip. But as of today, I'd still probably be in this field. So getting those 2 wins, I would have a huge issue. I mean, I had Louisville as a 9, so having them up as an 8 is not. And given I got some bias on my 8 line, so you could probably call it objectively that Louisville should be there.
Right. I kind of like David's 8 line. Salika, is there anything that you think is glaringly wrong here?
I kind of like the Louisville pick, but I would also add a little bit of caution with their win at Notre Dame because, as we know, it's not a completely healthy Irish roster. But if I did have to sub out Louisville for anyone, it might actually be Matt's team, and that's going to be Marquette because they had the win at home against Seton Hall recently. They have the win against LSU, which is looking stronger by the day. And they also have the road win at Providence, which is also maybe looking more significant by the day as well.
I'll tell you what, let's leave this line alone. And Joby, why don't you give me the 9 seeds here? Marquette and Alabama, the 2.
Excellent.
You're gonna
to
see
leave this line alone.
There's the conference that J&G really, really likes. And you are going to – and it's a wonderful place
with a blonde walking along tell us about the SEC.
Go ahead, give me your SEC
You already know
teams.
Alabama. I've already said Alabama, so let's go Alabama. It's Georgia. It's Arkansas. It's Missouri. I mean, is there a theme here? I think so.
It just means more.
Yeah, it just means more. But you get yeah.
I mean, I don't know that
when the formula starts to go screwy, all those things will be in our field, but not now. I get it.
I tell you, Joby, I mean, I think that you're probably right around. I think these are probably 4 teams that belong in the field and probably belong near here within maybe a seed line of this. But David,
exactly.
what do you
I think
think?
Marquette should be in this for
I think I agree with you.
I'm cautious to throw this team out there for 2 reasons. The committee isn't going to like them as much as I do, and they're currently losing at home to a sub-NIT team, and we'll see if it's yet to pull out. But Western Kentucky has the neutral floor win over Purdue. They have another pretty good win in that same tournament against SMU. And in all seriousness, like the wins at Old Dominion and the other win at Middle, I think it was, were the only 2 losses that those teams have at home.
Here's what. Let me pull that up there. Here's Western Kentucky's profile. It is.
I'm not seeing. Okay, there it is. Yeah.
Purdue, SMU, at Old Dominion, Wright State,
and at Marshall. Those are the only teams that have won at Old Dominion or at Marshall. Like, those are some pretty good wins. And okay, there is a little bit of blah there, but not a whole lot. And had they beaten Whiskey, which you hate to say what if, but there was that awful call at the end of the game that really cost them the game with 1 less bad loss. I mean, do you like them? This is a good Western Kentucky team that's struggling at home against UAB right now as we record this.
Well, and as we record it, there's another team that the J&G tomorrow, if they pull off what they're about to pull off, would have right here. Tied at 68, St. Mary's on the road, Gonzaga. They pull that off. I think there's no question that they should be mentioned on this line.
I would agree if they get this one. Yes, I would agree with that. But
throw that in.
Yeah, and I gotta say that I typically feel that the top under the radar teams that often end up on the 12 or 13 lines aren't as good as anybody in the top half of the bracket, but they're typically as good and often better than teams that are inside the bubble but not wearing white. And I think this Western Kentucky team fits that definition. Their profile may not be there, but this is a really good team.
Matt, your Marquette team is not here. Another Big East team by the name of Butler is not here.
Yeah, you just took the words right out of my mouth on that, Chad. Like, I think at this point, Butler's
not here. Oh, okay. Yeah, I had Butler as my next. I had Butler out of Western Kentucky, by the way. Sorry.
As you can see by the numbers, so the J&G.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marquette and Butler.
But Matt, who since I got to move one of these SEC teams out of here, who would you move out of these 4 that Joby put in?
Georgia still.
Okay.
Like, I had the other 3 right in this 9-10 seed range. Georgia actually did not have in my field. They were just out, but
yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and make that move. I'll put your Marquette team in here.
Okay.
Georgia out for now. Butler still under consideration. I think they really got to get into this next line.
I would like to point out that we really need to, like with Missouri on the 9 line, we need to match them up against a 16 seed in the round of 64 to ensure that they get to the round of 32 to play the 1 seed.
Matt, can you give me 4 teams here? Hopefully Butler is one of them.
Yeah, Butler is one of them. I do have last night's darlings SMU now.
Yes.
In this, I have Providence, and I actually do have David's Western Kentucky. I have them on my 10 line.
Okay.
I really like that. Like that list there. But Sika, what do you think about those 4?
Oh, I think one of the cautionary tales I have about Providence, for example, is yes, they do have the nice win against Xavier. They do have the win against Butler, but the other thing that I mentioned earlier that gives me pause for Providence are the losses against Minnesota, Houston, UMass on the road. I mean, when 3 3 bad losses or overriding 2 wins against tournament teams, that's a deal breaker for me as far as the Friars go.
Now, I'll say for that, like, to do that, Cartwright was injured during some of that time. I think it was Bullock. They were dealing with some injuries. Alpha Diallo, I think, was dealing with some injuries then. So, like, they basically just got healthy right as Big East play. So, like, it didn't do great for the league per se. It, like, hurt them some. But, like, once they've been healthy here at Big East play, I think you've seen a different team.
And I think another thing we have to bring up as far as Butler goes, this is, I think, the only team in the field right now that would have 7 losses. Granted, they're all probably going to be against NCAA tournament teams.
Yeah. Look where those 7 losses are. They're all Section 1 losses there. Only one of them at home. The rest neutral road. And they've got the wins over Nova and Ohio State and Marquette. I think Butler absolutely belongs in this field. You're going to –
I think they belong in the field, but a seed line lower is where I would have them.
I'll tell you, I kind of like this seed line. Joby, actually, no, I'm sorry, Stalika, you're up next. For give me the next 4 teams. We're going into the 11 line.
I think we need to get. I think whether or not they win tonight, we do need to get St. Mary's in the field right here.
We might get to. Here on tape delay, live on tape delay, it's like we might get to do some actual scrubbing. I don't think we've ever done that on a bracket show before.
we might make a move as based on how this game comes out. Absolutely. Go ahead. Beyond that, Sleeka, give me 3 more.
And at this point, I'm also going to go ahead and put Georgia back in here. I would also add Louisiana State in here. And then I'm going to add another under-the-radar team in New Mexico State that should probably be in at this point.
No should be about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I like 3 of your picks, but Joby, LSU, do they still belong in this field? I was one of the first people to put LSU in the field.
They are frustrating because they are the elevator team. We talk about teams free falling. LSU 2 or 3 days ago was a 6 seed. Maybe because they had look at the nice wins. I mean, Arkansas, Michigan, A&M. Let's remember, Houston's. We're going to maybe talk about. Who knows? But then, and Stephen F's is actually somewhat reasonable. But then you just keep piling up the losses, and you lose at home. That's Bama's in our field now, but they lose at home. That's when things are on the line. I still like them in this field. If we're filling spots, I think LSU probably does deserve one of those spots. But I can get the argument.
I think the other thing I would point out was if I take LSU out, would I put a team like Notre Dame in there? That would also give me a bit of pause right now.
Well, let's talk about David. Who would you? Is there anybody in this line you take out, and who would you put in over them of these 4?
I wouldn't have LSU in, and I don't think I'd even have Georgia this high. They barely missed my field. Have we put Marquette in yet? Yeah. Oh, Marquette's way in. Okay, I had forgotten to delete them off my list. A team that is the paper isn't quite there, at least in terms of the top of their profile, but I like this Boise State team. When I look at a team like Arkansas, like they're struggling in conference. Also Notre Dame, who I know that we've already been mentioned. I like both of them. Middle Tennessee, I probably slide them down. How about this? We mentioned Georgia. South Carolina has won 3 out of their last 4, including a win at Georgia. I like them more than Georgia. I mean, I don't think they should be where Georgia is, but I would have them in the field over Georgia.
Here's that South Carolina profile. Let's talk them versus LSU to start even here. Joby, that's a pretty nice profile even compared to LSU's, isn't it? Maybe better.
No, I wouldn't be. Well, LSU. Look at LSU's losses here. Yeah, Stephen F. is probably going to win their division, their conference. Illinois State's actually struggling. That is a very misleading RPI. They are not a very good team this year. Ole Miss. I'm not on the Ole Miss bandwagon. And then everything, and then South Carolina's one of the zillion teams who lost to Temple. I won't rag on them for that one. It's the losses that get me. Whereas you look at LSU's losses, you got to win that game against Alabama at home. I get it this week as I reverse myself. But I don't really see really awful losses there. It's even Stephen F is.
Then what
I
about
think
the
Stephen F. is better than Illinois
He's a
State.
solid team.
What about versus Georgia?
Stephen F. is better than Illinois State.
What about South Carolina versus Georgia, Matt? I mean, you got the UMass loss.
I love Georgia. I like Georgia's profile.
Okay.
Georgia
Yeah, I
didn't lose. Notice that Georgia beat Temple.
No, well, I
Well, South Carolina beat Georgia.
Wins away
I mean,
from home.
At
What? I think
Georgia.
that's what probably has Georgia here. Now, one team we haven't mentioned yet that I know we're going to probably loathe this. I think after the last couple of days, a certain team from Manhattan, Kansas.
I actually have them trending up in a hurry. They didn't make my field, but it's not an outrageous pick.
Well, I'll tell you what, we do need to make a call here, and I don't like the LSU pick at this point. I know we've still got four outlier spots left in the field, so we've got a little room to maybe get them back in. I like Boise State better than LSU for these four, which would be our 11 seeds. David, you're going to be giving us the last four teams. Before I do that, Joby, what about another ACC team we haven't mentioned? What about Syracuse?
Oh, no.
I don't like Syracuse right now.
Okay.
Plain and simple. They're out. Yeah, if you heard those who listen to the Monday show, I said, there's like 3 ACC teams above the line, 3 ACC teams below the line. They might be the last of those 6 teams, and they're below the line.
All right. Well, David, I'm going to let you do it. I'm going to let you give us the first 4. We've got 5 possibilities on the board there. There are other teams obviously out there as well, but give us your 4 teams in the field.
Okay, it is. Yeah. Okay. In this order, it's Notre Dame, South Carolina, who I kind of like, and then I have like my last team in is UCLA. Who did I have?
Okay.
They were. I wanted to say. LSU. I had them in. So.
Okay. So UCLA and LSU, that would complete the field if we don't make any changes. Let me ask you, David, who would your next team out be? Would it be one of those 2, K-State or Syracuse, or somebody else?
It was actually Washington, and then USC was next. Now, again, I didn't have St. Mary's in, but that would certainly change.
Oof. That's bad.
Yeah.
It's
Matt,
going to change, maybe. It's a 3-point lead with 15 seconds to go.
Whether,
So.
Well, let me. I want to run through. First, Matt, what do you think of his 4 teams, and is there somebody not even under consideration that maybe should be replacing one of them?
I like ND. I like UCLA. Not as wild about the SEC teams. It seems to be what I favor. I'd have the Big 12. I'd also have Baylor. We haven't talked about.
Oh, Baylor.
Okay. You're going to have to defend Baylor, because let me pull this profile up, and because I see nothing on it, and I mean nothing. But tell me, it's coming up in a second. Tell me what Baylor has done besides a neutral court win over Creighton, and nothing.
Yeah, that's the one that gets me. By still, for teams of this range, I mean, basically all UCLA has done is beating Kentucky at a neutral. And I have UCLA in, but like this is kind of the range where you might have one-hit wonders, or Texas at home, like a 1.5 hit wonder. But
and this is where the out-of-conference schedule probably comes to play.
Yeah, that's what hurts that. But the other one, okay, now this I'm partly on ignorance. Did A&M win the other day?
Yes.
Or did they lose? Okay.
Well, they sweated out Ole Miss at home. Let's not reward them for winning a home game against the sub-NIT team.
Well, but that's a good point. And you still got to look at that. The West Virginia win, the win at USC. It's not. They're still got in the consideration, aren't they?
You can consider them, but
and there's no bad. Even the tier 3 loss. Remember, LSU's in our field, kind of as it does here. But there's no bad losses there because the SEC is so strong.
No, just a bad team. All of a sudden.
Well,
Joe, if it was today, I'd kind of be interested in putting them in Dayton. And Maybe I had a Baylor thinking about it now, like taking a thought about it.
Yeah,
I'd have Kansas State over both.
I
but
always say this, Matt. I always say this, Matt. The teams I like to put teams in Dayton that are unproven and give yourself a shot, or schizo teams. Maybe A&M falls in that second category and has a soft spot. And Notre Dame would too, because of the whole Bonzie Coles thing. Let's see. I could definitely see an argument for Notre Dame in that position as well.
Well, and Joby, that's why I'm kind of leaning that I might have A&M in over UCLA there of those teams that we have.
I'd drop one of the SEC teams, probably South Carolina of those.
I'm in agreement. It's tough. South Carolina, LSU is it's a tight call. But yeah.
I like LSU did more out of conference, I think.
Pull up UCLA's profile one more time. We know the Kentucky win, but I think they've gotten a few other scalps here and there.
UCLA's other scalps are Washington and Utah at home, Wisconsin, Georgia.
One more. Yeah, Washington. Yeah. Not that great, but you know.
Well, Salika, what do you think on this? What move do you think I should make, if any, off of these four teams?
Yeah, I was looking at whether or not we should add Washington and USC, but not only are both teams losing, Washington and Utah are blatantly violating Hoops HD's first commandment, so they're out. But if I look at a team like Kansas State, they're out of conference schedule, a little bit too much of a joke. But Texas A&M, I know they have me holding my breath right now, but they're probably the least offensive team out of this bunch.
Over who? But which of these teams? Because I'm looking at this South Carolina, UCLA, LSU. I think one of them's got to go, but I don't know who.
I would take South Carolina out right now. I mean, there's plenty of teams that are going to have like one good week throughout the year.
Frank is going to be furious.
Well, they're rebuilding this year. He'll understand.
I guess the other question we could ask here is we have 5 teams that we left under consideration. These are our top 5 teams out. Is there anybody else that we think is knocking at the door here that we did not put in? David, is there anyone else that's close?
I don't know. Close, maybe not yet. I don't know how to answer this because I'm actually half serious when I say Nebraska is boat racing Michigan at home right now, and you start to look at the rest of their schedule, it's a lot of winnable games. Now, there isn't anything that really jumps out at you, but they're going to finish the record. I think they could potentially finish the year with a bloated record in the Big Ten, at least the kind of record that almost always gets you in when you're from a power conference. And they're actually not bad this year.
Yeah, but the Big Ten barely resembles a power conference this year.
Now I don't think they're gonna. I think they're gonna win. I mean, it would minus. I mean, they're up 17 with 7 minutes to go. I think they're gonna get this one. It's a protected seed, granted at home. But you look at this. I don't think they get Ohio State. But if they every game remaining after that, they're Maryland's at home. They could win out almost. I mean, I don't think they will, but I think they might win all but one of them. And if they're that far above 500 in Big Ten play, categorically they're in.
Well,
David, I always say
if I got to go another Big Ten team, I'd rather take the team on the right there who just came off of a win over Minnesota tonight, and that's Maryland. Not that I want to put either one of those teams in, but I think I like what a little better than what Nebraska's done so far.
No, I love what Nebraska. Well, and you got the dark web conspiracy that's going to come out. It's going to come out, and the committee's going to consider it as to why they lost some of their games. But this is a game that, I mean, even in their losses, they've been competitive. They got blown out a couple times, but they're beating the hell out of Michigan right now.
Chad, one other team to look out for is because they pulled it out tonight. NC State probably does deserve a discussion here. They're Johnny-come-latelys. It's a little South Carolina in your resume, but they're definitely, without a doubt, should be mentioned as somebody here.
No, they were in my team. Like they were in my not my first 4 out, my next 4 out, but they were on my list. And we've
Those
mentioned
wins are
most all
very
the other
nice.
ones.
I mean,
Yeah.
those are 4 protected seed type wins right there. Yes, they have the losses. You know, Greensboro is actually not a bad team. Northern Iowa is not a good team this year, but those are nice wins to collect. And if they collect more, then watch out.
As we recorded this, St. Mary's did win that game against Gonzaga.
Should we do a scrub? Should we do
I'm
a
going to do a
scrub?
very minor scrub. I'm going to bump them up a seed line, bump Western Kentucky down 1. I mean, maybe this win boosts them up higher than that, but they still have a really weak overall strength of schedule. So they've got issues still.
Plus, I think they're probably within 1 line at this point.
So now what do you do with Gonzaga? Do you swap them with Cincinnati?
No. You swap them with who?
Well, let me ask: is there a basis for Gonzaga? Joe, do you think Gonzaga should fall down a seed line for losing at home to St. Mary's?
St. Mary's. No, I actually would move. I feel like it's a case of St. Mary's maybe being 9 or 8 seed worthy.
I was going to show them how this worked. I was going to motion them all the way up to number 33. So,
yeah, I'd actually accept that. I'd accept.
Oh,
that.
It's been seconded. Oh, this is we've got.
Let's show the crowd how it's done.
All right.
Seconded.
Okay. So St. Mary's was motioned, and is everyone in favor of that? Number 33. Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Do here is going to delete St. Mary's off of there. We're going to kind of take everybody else here and move them down the line. Hopefully we can do this cut and paste thing correctly.
Yeah.
There we go.
There it goes.
Yeah.
Push St. Mary's back up here. There we go. That is how it's done. That was a scrub of the seed list. St. Mary's moved up to number 33 overall. I'm going to magically do something right here, and there are the 13 through the 16 seeds, or maybe not.
No, we're not seeing them. It's a good job, Chad.
Now there they are.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There's the rest of the field magically appeared there from South Dakota State down at number 49 all the way to Jackson State at the bottom of the list. But what I want to do is run through each of you for either any other final thoughts, either about what we did tonight or about anything else at all. I can leave the screen up here so people can take a look at it. But John, let me start with you.
I normally wouldn't be highlighting a Xavier St. John's game, but it was win number 203 for Chris Mack in his career, which allows him to surpass Pete Gillen as the all-time wins leader at Xavier. So he was getting a nice video tribute from past Xavier colleagues, as well as other dignitaries in Cincinnati, including Mayor John Cranley, Bengals head coach Marvin Lewis. So definitely have to offer him congratulations on his feat.
Joby?
I think it's pretty interesting that we have finally started to see a few under-the-radar teams make it inside the at-large field. We didn't have Western Kentucky. We didn't have New Mexico State and, let's say, Boise State, even though they aren't the top team in their conference. That actually kicks down for the first time in doing these this season, our at-large field to the 12 line. And it'll be interesting to see if that holds, because unfortunately for New Mexico State, Western Kentucky, and some of these other teams, maybe even your St. Mary's and the such, if you lose a few games against what is often Drek in your conference, you're not only losing out on a chance at large, being inside the bubble, you're losing out a chance at large overall.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And probably for next week's show, I may change our screen here a little bit and put 16s on the 12 line instead of the 11, because I think that's where we are trending if these wins keep going. Matt, let me turn to you.
Yeah, I think you've seen it a little bit, but I think there is a giant separation between the top 4 conferences this year, the rest. And that was like the ACC, the Big 12, the Big East, and the SEC. They're going to put in probably close to half this field by like rough calculations. I have right around, I think, 29 or 30 bids alone from those 4 leagues. And so of that, there goes like 26, 27 at-larges. So that's going to leave a select few for everyone else. And that partly because the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are woefully down, and the American hasn't quite taken the step up that a lot of us, myself included, thought they would. You're going to really see 4 teams kind of dominate the landscape of this tournament.
Well, interesting about the SEC there, we have 10 SEC teams that we put into this field tonight.
And South Carolina under consideration on top of that.
South Carolina.
Did we really? Oh, my God.
But if you look on the top 4 lines with protected seeds, only one of them is up there. This is an SEC that is, dominating the 6 through 10 seed range, 6 to 11 seed range, versus the Big 12, which is dominating the 1 lines and the 2 lines. So,
which means the only schools that are left out are going to be Vandy and the 2 Mississippi schools.
Yeah. But David, any other final thoughts to wrap up for the evening?
First, again, I know we just kind of blasted through the 13 through 16 lines. We do cover those teams rather more in depth each week in our Under the Radar podcast. It's probably down there somewhere if you want to check that out. And other than that, my wisdom is spread all throughout the show. I don't really save anything for the end. I leave it all out there during the show.
Okay. On that note, on behalf of Matt Zukowski, John Salika, Joby Fortson, and David Griggs, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again real soon. And you can look down below us there now. Hopefully, you didn't do it earlier, and see the fully completed bracket for what we did tonight. Have a great night, everyone.